Hello friends, welcome to Nauka Digital Institute. I am CA Palak Pavagati. Revision test paper, November 2020 for the subject Direct Access. Friends, this RTP is issued by our Mother Institute. And the material of the Mother Institute is just like Gita, Bible, Quran for us. And hence, we will be discussing each and every small or big, major or minor point of this RTP in the particular lecture. Let's begin with the same. First of all, they have given the clarification that what is applicable to you is November 2090 Finance Act 2 will be applicable to you. That was delivered on 5th July 2019 after the election by Honorable Finance Minister Mrs. Sitharaman. Thereafter, they are very clear that any notification circular issued up to 30th April 20, which is the general rule, are applicable for November 20 examination, and the relevant assessment year for November 20 examination is assessment year 2021, relevant to PY 1920. Friends, it is important to note that amendment made by Taxation Law Amendment Act 19 and significant notification circular up to 30th April, as I have said earlier, would be part and parcel of the examination. Friends, here important, as they are not covered in October 19 study material, we are supposed to be covering up the same over here. So, that's what is my first very important point. Friends, the very first aspect given by the legislature is Government's Notification number 16 2020 on 5th March 2020. This notification says about certain assets for which if the transfer is made, they are not regarded as transfer and they are not liable for capital gain. Friends, it goes this way. Under section 47, 7AB, A, B and C provides that any transfer of capital asset being bonds or global depository receipt referred to under 115 AC or rupee denomination bond of an Indian company or a derivative made by a non-resident on a recognized stock exchange in any IFSC, International Financial Service Center, would not be considered as transfer attracting the capital gain where the consideration for such transfer is paid or payable in foreign currency. Further, 47, 7AB and D provides that any transfer of a capital asset being such other security as may be notified by the central government in its behalf made by NR on a recognized stock exchange located in any IFSC would not be considered as transfer for attracting the capital gain, where such consideration is in foreign currency. Friends, they have in 47, 7 AB, and C define what needs to be transferred. But in 47, 7 AB, D, they have not defined which securities. There is a need of notifying the security by the CBDT and hence central government has come out with a notification saying that foreign currency denomination bond, unit of mutual fund, unit of business trust, foreign currency denominated equity shares of a company and unit of AIF called alternate investment fund, which are listed on a recognized stock exchange in any IFSC in accordance with the regulation of SEBI under Security Exchange Board of India or the IFSC authority under any IFSC Authority Act 2019 as the case may be, are considered to be the specified security, meaning thereby if these securities are transferred, then the transaction will not be regarded as transfer and the transaction would not be liable for capital gain. Friends, as may be notified by the central government word was important in the section, and by way of this notification, these securities are notified by the central government. If they are transferred, they are not liable for capital gain, is the first fundamental. Friends, the next one. that is related to income from other source. See, for the purpose of taking you to the RTP and the notification circular, we need to first take care of the particular provision. And friends, it says this way, under that income from other source 56.2, you are aware that gift is taxable in the hands of the recipient if certain conditions are fulfilled. Whether the gift is of movable property or immovable property, if it exceeds 50,000, movable in aggregate, immovable per transaction, then recipient would be liable for tax. Important is, friends, that in the case of the immovable property, there is a limit of that 5% of the stamp duty value also need to be checked out. There was a confusion related to the non-resident gift, and that's the reason a proviso to section 56.2 subclause 10 has been inserted, which says that any sum of money or value of property would not be chargeable to tax in the hands of the recipient if it is received from such class or classes of person subject to such conditions as may be prescribed. Meaning thereby, in certain cases, the gift won't be taxable if it is received from such classes of person. And that's the reason central government inserted Rule 11 UAC, which provides that 56.2 subclause 10, that is gift, won't be applicable in the case of immovable property being land or building or both received by resident of an unauthorized colony in the National Capital Territory of India, where the central government by notification in the official gazette regularized the transaction of such immovable property based on the latest POA, power of attorney, agreement to sale, will, possession letter or other documents relating, including documents evidencing the payment of consideration for conferring or recognizing right of ownership of transfer or mortgage in regard to such immovable property in favor of such resident. Meaning thereby, friends, there are number of unauthorized colonies, number of unauthorized, I would say, area wherein people are living. Now, they have bought the particular property by way of only power of attorney or only making payment and entering into an agreement. This agreement is nowhere recorded in the register of the government, be it be state government or be it be local authority. Delhi government, national capital, has decided to regularize certain transaction, and the person who is owning the power of attorney or the person who is having the agreement to sale has been transferred the legal right of the property by the Delhi government, by the central government. Friends, the point important is that it may so happen that my AO may treat this transaction as the transaction of gift. To overcome the same, it has been provided that that won't be regarded as gift, that won't be liable for tax in the hands of the receiver if he has made the payment, if he has got the agreement to sale or power of attorney or some title which may not be a bona fide title, which may not be a registered title, but because he is owning the possession, he is owning the POA, he is being given the right over the property, then it won't be considered as a gift to him, it won't be liable for tax in his hands. Friends, they've defined the term resident, a person having physical possession of the property on the basis of the registered sale deed or latest set of POA, agreement to sale, will, possession letter, other document, including document evidencing the payment of consideration in respect of a property in unauthorized colonies, which includes legal heir but does not include tenant, licensee or permissive user. An unauthorized colony means a colony or development comprising of a contiguous area where no permission has been obtained for approval or layout of plan or building plan or has been identified for regulation of such colony in pursuance to the notification prescribed. Friends, so This won't be regarded as transfer, or this won't be regarded as gift. It won't be taxable in the hands of the receiver. This is for 56 to 10. Now, the most important. And in RTP, around 10 pages are given for the next point, and that is assessment of company. Honorable Finance Minister ma'am came out with an ordinance having the encouragement to the corporate tax rate. This was proposed by the Lady Finance Minister on, if I am not mistaken, 20th of September 2019. It was Friday, and friends, the stock market went up by more than 1900 points because the Finance Minister ma'am has reduced the corporate rate of tax to 22%. And this reduction is applicable to even the old companies also. She has inserted 115BAA, reduced the corporate tax rate. She has also inserted 115BAB, and for manufacturing company, she has given the another concessional rate of 15%. Let us check out what exactly it is. It is, as I have said, 20th September 19. Friends, your October 19 edition, the rate of tax should be replaced by what we are studying now. We have the concessional rate of tax applicable for AY 2021. This is the first year. 1920 previous year relevant to assessment year 2021 is the first year. Friends, we have section 115BAB, 115BAA. This particular section 115BAA is applicable to any domestic company. Friends, let us have 115BAA first. BAB, I'll be dealing separately at a later stage. Maybe new, maybe old. The rate of tax is only 22%. So, domestic companies having turnover more than 400 crore in the financial year 17-18 are liable for tax at the rate of 30%. Less than 400 crore in the year 17-18 financial year are liable for tax at the rate of 25%. Their tax rate is reduced to 22%. So, from 25 to 22 is a big benefit of approximately 3%. Companies were very happy and reacted very sharply on the date of proposal, that is on Friday 20th of September 2019. But they have forgotten to check out that there is always a surcharge at the rate of 10% which would be applicable. So it's not 22, it's 24.2. In place of 25, it is 24.2. See friends, in general cases, companies are liable to pay the surcharge if their income exceeds the prescribed limit. If you are going for the normal tax, that is 30% or 25%. Here, surcharge would always be applicable. Even if your income is 4 lakh or 40,000, this would be 22 plus 10%. Plus 4% says will be giving you 25.168% would be the tax which would be applicable. Beauty of the provision is MAT is not applicable. I would be discussing this at length, or if you recollect in the company assessment in the new rates of tax, this is discussed at length, but here also I'll be concentrating. Friends, it provides that you have to have 25.168% under the Income Tax Act. But remember that if it is a special rate income, right, friends, Chapter 12 income, long-term capital gain, which is taxable at the rate of 20%, or 111A short-term capital gain, which is taxable at the rate of 15%. All this income would be taxed at the special rate. What important point is, even if the income is taxable at the special rate, surcharge of 10% would always be leviable if you have opted for 115BAA, meaning thereby your business income will be taxable, say at 22%, your long-term capital gain will be 20%, your 111A short-term capital gain will be at 15%, but on all the three, there is going to be surcharge at the rate of 10%, which would be leviable, plus health and education cess of 4%, which would be applicable. Friends, if there is any other income than the business income, like they are having house property income or they are having interest income, then such income, as they don't have any special rate, would also be taxable at the rate of 25.168%. And friends, if they have normal short-term capital gain, maybe say depreciable asset sold off or gold sold off, that is also taxable at 25.168%. Friends, remember that here, very important to note that other than the special rate income, all other income will be taxable at 25.168%, that is 22 plus 10 plus 4. Then they are giving certain benefits for MAT. Now, important to note that when you are opting for 115BAA, MAT is not payable. In past, if you paid MAT, there can be MAT credit. And you can recover the MAT credit only when you pay the tax on taxable income. Friends, here, when you want to opt for this concessional rate of tax, then there are certain restrictions which are given. And friends, the restrictions which are provided are in the common conditions. It says that company opting for 115BAA or BAB at a later stage would be able to claim without providing the deduction as per the following section, meaning thereby they cannot avail exemption under section 10AA if they have unit in special economic zone, then such unit won't be eligible to avail section 10AA exemption. You have to forego 10AA if you are going for concessional rate. You have to forego additional depreciation at the rate of 20% or in certain specified states of the country 35% if you are going for the special rate. You have to forego 32 AD, that is applicable to West Bengal or Telangana or Andhra Pradesh or Bihar. That is also to be foregone, friends, if you are opting for the concessional rate. See, it's give and take relationship of the government. Government on one side giving you the concessional rate, government on other side taking back certain advantages. You cannot enjoy 33AB or 33ABA deduction, that is NABARD for tea, coffee, rubber manufacturer, or the mineral exploration that deposit in the specified account site restoration fund. Weighted average deduction for the payment of donation to the scientific research institute won't be available. This is important and don't be mistaken, friends. Important is that if the scientific research expenditure is incurred, whether the expenditure is revenue or whether the expenditure is capital, you are eligible for deduction. You are eligible for deduction. They have not given any prohibition under 35(1)(1) or 35(1)(4), which talks about revenue expenditure, which talks about capital expenditure. They have given the prohibition under section 35(1)(2), 2A and 3, which talks about donation. They have given the prohibition under 35(2)AA, that is donation made to national laboratory is not available. They have given the prohibition under 35(2)AB for in-house research expenditure for company engaged in bio product, meaning thereby this is the only restriction for in-house expenditure. Other than the same, if you have incurred on your own scientific research expenditure, 100% deduction can be claimed. Donation won't qualify for the deduction, friends. Same way, you cannot enjoy investment linked deduction under section 35AD, like if you started the hospital of more than 100 patient bed, or you started hotel fulfilling certain conditions, you are cold storage for agricultural produce or sugarcane, you are eligible to get 35AD. This 35AD investment linked deduction you have to give up if you are opting for this new concessional rate. So choice is yours. You want to go for the old rate, you can have all this benefit. You want to go for the new rate, you cannot have all this benefit. 35CCC CCD are not available. Very important. 80IA to 80RRB, that is chapter 6A part C deductions are not available except for new employees under section 80JJAA. This deduction can be claimed. Any other deductions are not permitted under the general deduction head. Friends, now over and above that, there are some restrictions. You are supposed to compute the income without setting off any loss or allowance or unabsorbed depreciation, which is due to, this is important, which is due to any of the item mentioned above, or unabsorbed depreciation also it should be due to additional depreciation under section 32(1)(2)(a) of the Income Tax Act. Friends, if I highlight the particular provision with the help of one simple illustration, it goes this way. Kindly please listen, pay full concentration over here, friends. There is X Limited, and say this X Limited, friends, is providing following details to you. Sales current year 1000, normal expenditure current year 400, normal depreciation current year 50, additional depreciation current year, can I say 20. Friends, assume brought forward loss due to scientific research donation 10, due to others 15, unabsorbed depreciation due to normal depreciation 7, due to earlier year additional depreciation 4. This many informations are provided to me. I am supposed to compute, friends, as per old, as per new. Now, if I go as per old, can I say under the head business and profession, I have to have sales 1000 less expenditure 400 less debt 50 less additional debt 20, and whatever I get would be my net current year income. Now see, as far as my net current year income is concerned, can I say it would be giving me 530, friends? Now see, less you can have the brought forward loss due to SR, due to others 10 as well as 15, and you can have unabsorbed depre due to normal and due to additional, you can set off both. And friends, my net income over here, can I say, will be after deducting, listen, it is 530 less 10 and 15 less 7 and 4 will be giving me 494. My tax will be at the rate of say 25% is the tax rate which would be applicable. But friends, if I go for the new one, can I say my sales will be 1000, my expenditure will be 400? That both would be available. Now relevant, would I be able to get the normal depreciation? Yes. But would I be able to get additional depreciation? No. If I want to move for 115 BAA, I want to select this option. I cannot get additional depreciation, friends. Same way. After the same, my income will be 550. Now the question arises, would I be able to set off the loss? All the loss can be set off except the loss due to the point mentioned as the negative list, which are not available. Meaning thereby, as scientific research donation is mentioned in the negative list, loss due to scientific research donation of the earlier year cannot be set off. If it is separately given, then only. Friends, but any other loss can be set off. Depreciation unabsorbed due to normal can be set off. Depreciation unabsorbed due to additional cannot be set off. And friends, my taxable income will be coming to 528 and tax will be at the rate of 22% plus 10% plus 4%, that is 25.168% would be the tax rate. Be careful. It is open for my assessee to say that I don't want to go for this option from the financial year 1920. Let me first set off everything. And I want to select this option of going for 115 BAA from financial year 2021. Is it permitted? Yes, it is permitted. It's up to the assessee. Assessee can first set off all the losses, all the unabsorbed depreciation, even if from the negative list, and go for the old. After having all the set off, it is open for him to opt for the new. It is permitted. Assessee can select the beneficial option to him. This is one. Second, friends, MAT is not applicable, as I have said earlier. Now, what would happen is, if mine is a company A Limited, and if this is very important, if A Limited has got taxable income coming to 1000, you have brought forward loss and you have unabsorbed depreciation. Your earlier year brought forward loss is say 400 and your unabsorbed depreciation is say 850. Same way, you have book profit also before set off, say 700, and your accountancy brought forward loss is say for example nil, or accountancy and accountancy unabsorbed depreciation, book unabsorbed depreciation is say 250. Now if I go for the MAT and taxable income of the company, friends, for the company, the taxable income will be current year income 1000 less brought forward loss 400 less unabsorbed depreciation 600 and my net income will be nil. My tax will be nil. This is what is my point. Now assume that if I find out my book profit under 115 JB, then can we say current year book profit is coming to 700? As current year is 700, less I'll be able to set off brought forward loss or unabsorbed debt, whichever is less, and I'll be able to set off unfortunately nil, and I have my book profit to be 700. My friends, mind well, the rate of MAT is also revised to 15%. So on this I would end up paying tax at the rate of 15% is the provision. Now important, if in the given case I assume that not a single rupee loss is due to 3580 or due to scientific research donation or due to 35 CCC or 3280, not due to any prohibited item, as well as I assume unabsorbed depreciation is also not due to additional depreciation. If I opt for the new one, that is if I opt for 115BAA, can I say even if I opt for 115BAA, I will be able to set off everything and my taxable income will be zero. My tax payable at the rate of 25.168% would be zero. It is always advisable to go for the new. You will say that, sir, what difference it will make when your taxable income is zero, whether you go for the new or old? If you go for the new, MAT is not going to be applicable, and if MAT is not going to be applicable, it's a beauty for many company assessees, MAT companies, those who are paying tax on book profit. If they shift to the new, they will be saving the tax on their book profit, as MAT is not payable in the case of 115BAA option, and that's genuinely fantastic, I would say. Friends, you can opt for the new to get rid of minimum alternative tax, and many companies, I tell you, would be shifting from the old to the new 115BAA. Third one, if say for example there is a company called R Limited, and R Limited has got MAT credit available under 115JAA. Can I say this MAT credit can be recovered against the tax on taxable income within 15 years? It's available. Now listen friends, if my company is liable for tax on TI, going for the old or going for the new. For the lecture proper, when I use the word new, it is 115BAA. Old means 25%, 30%, whatever the normal rate of tax applicable to the company. If they are going for the old, they can recover MAT credit. If they are going for the new, MAT is not payable, and as the MAT is not payable, they cannot recover the MAT credit. So friends, if you are shifting to the new, you have to forget about the MAT credit. It is open for my assessee to say that till the time I am recovering my MAT credit, I am opting for old. And once the MAT credit is appropriately recovered, he can shift to the new. That option is also permitted to my assessee. You can recover the MAT credit and remain in the old and thereafter you can shift to the new. That option perfectly permitted, friends, and you can select this also. Friends, coming back to the material, remember that in case of a company, this is what I have already explained, setting off opting for 115BAA, total income should be computed without set off and it cannot be carried forward in any earlier year. Second, 80LA deduction is available to banking company if they are incorporated in IFSC, International Financial Service Center, and this would be allowed subject to the conditions mentioned there. Third point, I must compliment ICAI on being very specific on the point, because this was not there when it was proposed by the finance minister, ma'am. But at a later stage, the proviso is inserted under 115BAA, and that proviso has created big confusion. Number of articles are written by various experts. When I use the word expert, I am not talking about the expert who are delivering the lecture to the students. No, I am talking about professional experts, those who are fighting the case in the court or giving consultancy service to the professionals in the practicality. This was a difficult clause to interpret. ICAI is pretty specific, and I definitely would go with ICAI. Where there is depreciation allowance in respect of block of asset which has not been given full effect prior to 2021, corresponding adjustment shall be made in WDV of the asset on 1419 in the prescribed manner. If option of 115BAA is exercised for PY 1920 relevant to AY 2021. For example, if asset is acquired and put to use for less than 180 days in the PY 1819, the balance of additional depreciation to be allowed in 1920 will be made in the WDV of block on 1419 if this option is exercised. This is going to be slightly harsh if I clarify what I want to convey you. Friends, there is a manufacturing company. It is an old company. I am not going for 115BAB. Now, this manufacturing old company has on 18th of November 2018, a plant machinery is purchased at 100 rupees. In the year 1819, your normal depreciation will be 7.5. Additional depreciation will be 10. And on 1419, your opening WDV will be 82.5. Friends, remember, this company is switching to 115BAA from PY 1920. Now, if it switches to 115BAA from the financial year 1920, can I say they can get in the year 1920 normal depreciation, but they cannot get in the year 1920 additional depreciation? There is no doubt about the same. If they would not have opted for the new 115BAA, they would have got the additional depreciation. How much additional depreciation they would have got? They would have got additional depreciation of how much? Can I say, friends? 10 rupee. They would have got 10 rupee additional depreciation. But they are ready to forgo this 10 rupee and they are opting for the new. They should be allowed to go for the new. Proviso to 115BAA says that if you want to opt for the new scheme 115BAA, then assume that the additional depreciation would have been fully allowed in the earlier year. If it would have been fully allowed in the earlier year, then your notional WDV is, listen, 1920 notional additional depreciation. Actually, this is not going to be available, but your WDV is to be reduced with the same, and I would be clear, friends, that on 1419 make this adjustment and you would be able to get now the normal depreciation on this reduced price. Something unique, but this is the interpretation. There are two schools of thought, but I will be going with this as Institute has given this very specifically. Institute says that reduce the WDV by depreciation additional that remains not allowed in the earlier year. See, this 10 rupee is not going to be allowable to you, but this 10 rupee would be reduced from the block. So there would be double disadvantage. Number one, normal depreciation would be available on a lower amount and that additional depreciation is not available. So this is my 115 BAA. One more, since there is no time limit prescribed, friends, within which option under 115 BAA can be exercised, a domestic company having brought forward loss or unabsorbed depreciation, or as I have said, missed credit, can postpone and can go for the same at a later stage. Same way, on failure to satisfy the condition, the option exercise would be invalid in respect of assessment year relevant to the previous year subsequent to assessment year. From the year in which conditions are violated, it would be invalid, and consequently the other provisions of the act would apply as if the person has not exercised such option for the particular year. The question arises, assume I have opted for the new in the year 1920. 2021 I have opted for new. 21-22 I have opted for new. 22-23 I am violating the condition. So as I am violating the condition, I will be thrown back to the old. Can I say that, sir, revive my additional depreciation or revive my MAT credit or revive my loss due to the prohibited items? And answer is no, you cannot. You forget this. Nothing is available. That all will lapse and you are taken to the old one. And friends, as I have said, MAT credit I have already spoken, and friends, there is no transfer pricing adjustments in 115 BAA which would be applicable in the BAB. How to exercise this option? Friends, November 20 students of mine are on leave, so they don't have this issue in the office, but in office, friends, we have presently this particular things going on. You have to select this option while filing the return under 139(1). So when you file the return, this option is to be exercised whether you want to go for old or you want to go for new. Friends, at the same time, remember, it is not necessary that you go for 115 BAA from the year 1920 only. You can opt in the year 2021, as I have explained, 21-22 also. But once you have opted for the option, you cannot on your own take it back. If you want to come out of this option, you have to violate the condition and come out. Otherwise, it is not open for you to say that, sir, I don't want to go for the new. I want to come back to the old. You are not. There is only one way. You can enter. You cannot on your own come out. You can be thrown out if you are not fulfilling the conditions. Friends, this would take me to 115 BAB. This particular section, friends, is applicable to domestic manufacturing company only. 115 BAA is applicable to manufacturing, trading, service sector, any other company. But BAB only to manufacturing company. It is applicable then. If this particular section is applicable, your tax rate is only 15% plus 10% always the surcharge plus 4% says effectively 17.16%. MAT here would also not be applicable. Friends, Here also, if there is any special rate of tax, as I have explained, like the rate of tax on long-term capital gain or 111A, it would be applicable at the special rate. All other income will be applicable at this particular tax rate. Friends, here this is important to note that the rate of tax is, friends, 15%. Now my important point. If there is other income in respect of which no special rate is provided, the applicable rate Act says is 25.168%, that is 22 plus 10 plus 4. If such income has neither been derived nor is incidental to manufacturing or production or any article or thing, like HP income or like other source, and in respect of such income, no deduction or allowance shall be allowed in computing such income. Meaning thereby, the rate of tax applicable as per the views of ICAI is 15% only for manufacturing income. For all other head income, the rate of tax applicable is 25%. Friends, in spite this is the view of ICAI, with all due respect, I slightly differ. I differ saying that if there is manufacturing income, it is 15% agreed. But if the same company along with manufacturing income has other head income, then also the rate of tax applicable will be not 22%, but it would be 15% only. Had the company doesn't have any manufacturing income, then only you can go for, or you have to have 22. Otherwise, in my humble opinion, 22% won't be coming into play. What would be coming into play is 15% only. Friends, same way they are talking about the short-term capital gain, wherein, as I have said, I slightly differ. Friends, there are certain conditions which needs to be fulfilled for the particular section. The company must be set up new and registered on or after 1/10/2019. It should start manufacturing or production of any article up to 31st March 2023. It should be new unit, not formed by split up or reconstruction of existing unit. It should be new unit, not having old plant and machinery, except 20% Indian second hand would do, or if it is foreign plant machinery which was not used in India prior to its installation and on which no depreciation is provided in India, then this machinery will, there should not be second hand Indian machinery more than 20%, or if it is second hand foreign machinery of any amount, it would do, there is no problem. It does not use any building previously used as hotel or convention center, meaning thereby, if you have second hand building other than the building used for hotel or convention center, it would do, you would be able to avail the benefit. It should not be engaged in business other than manufacture or production or article or thing. If it engages in manufacturing as well as trading, I am afraid on the whole income you cannot go for 15%. You will lose 15% and you will be subjected to that 22%. Friends, manufacturing has been specifically having certain exclusions like development of software in any form of media or mining or conversion of marble block into similar item of slab, bottling or gas into cylinder, printing of books or producing cinematography films or any other business as may be notified by central government, then friends, these are not called manufacturing. On this, you are not eligible for the concessional rate of 15% under 115B, AB as I have said, all the benefits of additional depreciation 35AD, 35(1), 2A, 3, donation to national laboratory, donation to scientific research, 80IA to 80RRB except JJAA, 80 except 80LA for IFSC, all other, I would say, these all benefits are not available. Friends, if you fail to satisfy the conditions mentioned earlier, then the exercise would be invalid in respect of AY relevant to the PY and subsequent PY. Consequently, you are now not allowed to go for 15%, but you are shifted to 25 or 30, whatever the case may be. And friends, there also the MAT is not payable, and as it is a new company, there is no question of having brought forward MAT credit. Friends, here also, if AO finds that there are transactions between 15% tax rate company and the other sister concern having higher rate, and that higher rate company is trying to, or higher rate assessee sister concern is trying to shift the income to 15%, then it is open for AO to consider the same to be a transaction covered by transfer pricing. And friends, it is open for AO to apply the income considering the TP adjustment. Very important. The amount being profit in excess of the amount of the profit determined by AO shall be deemed to be income of the person, and such income would be subjected to tax at 30% plus surcharge plus cess. And friends, specified domestic transaction and the transfer pricing would now cover this particular transaction with 115 BAB company also. Friends, here this particular adjustment is permitted by the AO. You have to select the option in the first return of the previous year. So if you are starting your new company manufacturing unit on or after 1/10/2019, assume you started in the year 1920, you have to select the option from the financial year 1920 only. Friends, if you have selected the option of 115 BAB, you cannot withdraw the option. If you are starting the unit in the year 2021, start the option with the first year, that is PY 2021 itself. And here also, as I have said, second-hand machinery and other things would not be applicable to my assessee. It should be the new unit. Friends, two concessional rates are provided for the corporate assessee, that is 25% and 22% and 15%. If you are starting the firm or LLP, then rate of tax is 30%, whether it is old or new. But if you are starting if you have got the old company, you can shift to 22. If you are starting new manufacturing company, then you can have 15%. That's a big benefit. But the provision for company would have 1150, that is dividend distribution tax. If you want to distribute the profit from the firm or LLP to the partner, that profit is fully exempt. If the profit is distributed by the company to the shareholder, it would be subjected to dividend distribution tax, plus for the year for which you are appearing in the examination in the hands of the shareholder, it would be also subjected to 115 BBDA. If the dividend from the domestic company exceeds 10 lakh, the excess will be taxable at the rate of 10%. So that needs to be taken care of. Friends, the next point of discussion is the increased rate of surcharge applicable from your year, that is financial year 1920. The Honorable Finance Minister has increased the rate of surcharge. The rate of surcharge applicable for individual HUF, AOP, BOI and artificial judicial person is, if your income is up to 50 lakh, no surcharge. If income is above 50 lakh up to 1 crore, surcharge rate will be 10%. Above 1 crore up to 2 crore, 15%. Now there is a change. If your income is about 2 crore, but up to 5 crore, the rate of surcharge will be 25% on your total tax. And if income goes above 5 crore, the rate of surcharge will be 37%. Those people who are earning the capital gain under section 112A, long-term capital gain on removal of 1038, or earning the short-term capital gain under section 111A, have said that this won't be acceptable. Actually, the opposition is started by FII, FPI, those who are having their unit in India. If they are liable for this increased rate of surcharge, they would end up paying huge tax, and if they would end up paying huge tax, they would start de-investing money. To give the benefit, Honorable Finance Minister Ma'am has come out with the clarification that the highest rate of surcharge applicable on 111A and 112A would be 15%, cannot exceed 15%. And that's the reason, even if your income is 8 crore, but if this 8 crore is 111A or 112A, you would be ending up paying surcharge of only 15% and not 37%. Friends, the question would be relevant if there is a mixed income. And that's what has been given in the RTP. Here, there are different situations given. Number one, where the total income including 112A, 111A is above 50 lakh but up to 1 crore, then the rate of surcharge on the whole income will be 10%, like your STCG 111A, long-term capital gain 25 lakh and other income 40 lakh. The whole income will be subjected to surcharge at the rate of 10%. Assume your short-term capital gain is 60 lakhs. Long-term capital gain is 65. See friends, when I use the word short-term, it would be 111A. When I use the word long-term, it would be 112A. And other income in 50 lakh. Then your rate of surcharge on the whole income will be, as it doesn't exceed 2 crore, 1.75. On 1.75 crore, 15%. Now important. Where your total income excluding 111A and 112A is more than 2 crore. Then on such other income tax, the rate of surcharge 25% and on 111A and 112A 15%. Like you have 54 lakh 111A, 55 lakh 112A and other income 3 crore. Friends, your NTI is coming to 4.9 crore. Out of 4.9 crore, if this clarification would not have been issued by Mrs. Sitharaman, then on full 4 crore 9 lakh, the surcharge rate would have been 25%. But because of the clarification, it has been provided that on 3 crore tax, the surcharge is 25%. And on remaining 1.9 crore, the surcharge rate will be only 15%. It can't exceed 15%. Same way, where your other income is 6 crore and 111A and 112A is 1.15 crore. On this 1.15 crore, 15%, and on 6 crore, it will be 37%, which would be the rate of surcharge. Now important. Where 111A is 60, 112A is 55. Friends, so your NTI in the given case is 110 crore plus 55 lakh plus 60 lakhs. So 110 plus 125, this comes to 2.25. Out of 2.25, 111A and 112A is coming to, friends, can we say 1.05 crore, and other is coming to 1.10 crore. My simple issue, remember one thing very carefully, that you are supposed to take the rate of surcharge to be 25% or 37% only when the other income exceeds 2 crore or 5 crore respectively. Here on the whole income, the surcharge will be at the rate of 15% only. So is a big benefit given to my assessee. Same way friends, kindly listen. If we check out with those who are having income under 115 AD, 115 AD friends talk about FII, foreign institutional investor. Foreign institutional, and the amendment, maximum rate under 111A and 112A 15% was brought in for giving the benefit to FII, and thereafter it is indirectly giving benefit to me or you also. Friends, FII has capital gain chargeable under 115 AD at the rate 60 lakh and other income 35 lakh. The whole income will be 10%. They have capital gain 1.2, other income 60. The total income will be subjected to surcharge at the rate of 15%. Now important. They have capital gain 1.2 crore and they have other income 3 crore. Now 3 crore will be liable for tax at the rate of 25%. But this additional 1.2 crore, even if it is not chargeable under 112A or 111A, this would be taxable under 115 AD at the rate applicable under 115 AD, that is at the rate of 10% or that is at the rate of 30%. Friends, the rate of surcharge on this would also be 15%. So for 112A, 111A, 112A and 115 AD, the maximum rate of surcharge cannot exceed, friends, how much percentage? Cannot exceed, friends, 15%. In spite your income may be above 5 crore or above 2 crore. Friends, so this was related to clarification on surcharge. The next in the RTP is related to charitable trust, political party and electoral trust. Friends, if you are making investment in National Payment Corporation of India and its subsidiary company, then this investment is permissible for the charitable trust as per notification dated 5th March 2020. Concept is, if you are earning the income of 100 rupees, you can keep 15% accumulation and you have to apply 85. Now, if you are not able to apply 85 as per section 11.2 raid with 11.5, you have to make the investment. Subject to definitely, you have to fill the specific form up to the due date of filing of return. You have to make the investment up to the due date of filing of return. This investment must be made in the specified security. In this specified security, as per rule 17C, there are number of modes wherein you can invest is been notified. The notification also now include the equity share capital or bonds or debenture of a company which is engaged in the operation of retail payment system or digital settlement or similar activity in India and abroad and is approved by the RBI, and at least 51% of equity shares are held by National Payments Corporation of India. Friends, to have the digital mode of the transaction encouraged, if the trust is making investment in this particular security, then friends, it would be eligible for the exemption accumulation to the trust. So is a benefit. 194N, that is related to TDS, talks about cash withdrawal and the TDS. Till now, if you are depositing the cash, government is angry with you, government has got all the information, government can make a checking asking you what is the source of the cash. Now withdrawal would also be restricted because government wants that you, even if you are earning everything in bank, still your payment, if you are making by cash, by bearer check, that won't be acceptable, and hence government brought in 194N for cash withdrawal. Finance Act 2 2019 has inserted 194N with effect from, this is important, 1st September 2019 to require a person being a banking company or a cooperative society engaged in carrying on the business of banking or post office who is responsible for paying in cash any sum aggregate of sums exceeding 1 crore during the previous year to any person from one or more account maintained with such bank by such recipient. It should be 2% TDS deducted on an excess of 1 crore rupees. The deduction would be made at the time of payment only. General rule is TDS is made only from the receipt of the payee, income of the payee. Here the TDS is made from the cash withdrawal. Now the issue is that this rule has come into force from 1st September 2019, and hence the first issue here arose was this. See, there is, say for example, ICICI Bank, in which Mr. A has current account. He has withdrawn cash from 1/4/19 to 31st August 19 worth 90 lakh. Now as is withdrawn 19 lakh, now between say 19/19 to 31st March 20, if the cash withdrawal is 25 lakh, TDS on friends 194N is to be made only on 15 lakh, meaning thereby on first 10 lakh no 194N, but on remaining 15 lakh there is going to be 194N. Listen carefully. The clarification issued by CBDT is that the limit of 1 crore is not to be looked for the withdrawal after 1st September 2019. The limit of 1 crore is in aggregate for the whole year, meaning thereby assume that we have Mr. B who has already withdrawn 120 lakh from you. Then you must not have made the TDS, as the section was not applicable up to that day. But now you withdraw 3 lakh rupee, that 3 lakh rupee will be subjected to TDS. Those 3 lakh will be fully subjected to TDS if you have exceeded 1 crore prior to 31st August. Prior to 31st August, even if it is 120 lakh, 1 crore 20 lakh, no TDS. But now 1st September onwards, whatever you withdraw would be subjected to 194N. Assume we have Mr. C who has withdrawn 60 lakh and thereafter who has withdrawn 30 lakh, then TDS is not required to be made. The reason being aggregate in the year 1920, it doesn't exceed, friends, 1 crore. So this is first. Second, a good notification by the central government which says, which is issued on 15th October 2019, that there are certain person or class of person which may be notified by central government. If they are withdrawing, no TDS is required to be made under 194N, meaning thereby 194N is not applicable to the withdrawal made by the following person, and central government has notified authorized dealer and its franchisees or sub-agent who are approved by the RBI, full-fledged money changer licensed by RBI and franchise agents. At the same time, you are given that such person should maintain a separate account for withdrawal made for this purpose, for purchase of foreign currency from foreign tourists or non-resident visiting in India from resident Indians on their return to India in cash as per the directions or guideline issued by RBI, and disbursement of inward remittance to the recipient beneficiary in India in case under money transaction service scheme of the RBI. This exemption is given only if the certificate is furnished by authorized dealer and their franchise agent and full-fledged money changers and their franchise agent to the bank that withdrawal is only for the purpose of specified about, and they have been adhered to. So simple if I clarify. When you are traveling to, say for example, traveling to US and coming back to India, on airport, you will find money exchanger. You will give the dollar, they'll give the cash. They'll not tell you that we are depositing money in your account, you go and withdraw. They'll give you the cash over the counter. Now from where they are getting the cash? They have to withdraw the cash from the bank, from their account. Now on their withdrawal, if there would have been 194N, then there is a big problem to them. They are exempted. Subject to they are giving declaration. Subject to they'll adhere to the use of cash withdrawal only for this purpose, and they'll have a separate account for the withdrawal. If they are withdrawing money for making a payment of salary to their employee, then I am afraid if it exceeds 1 crore, 194N will be applicable. If they are withdrawing for this purpose only, then the particular section won't be applicable. Friends, here at the same time, there is 18th November 2019 notification which says that proviso to 194N provides that no TDS under this section if any payment is made to government or banking company, cooperative society, post office, etc. Any business corresponding to the banking company as per the RBI guideline, any white label ATM operator of a banking company, such other person or classes of person as central government in consultation with RBI notify. Accordingly, the CBDT has said that the deductor at the time of preparing statement of tax deduction at source, because see, if ICICI Bank has got say 20 accounts from which cash withdrawal is more than 1 crore, they'll prepare the statement of this 20 account. They are supposed to furnish particulars of amount paid or credited on which tax was not deducted in view of the exemption as per notification 80/2019 dated 15th October 2019, meaning thereby that for the money exchanger, if the payment is made and TDS is not deducted, out of 20, if say 3 are money exchanger who has given this particular certificate to the effect, bank has to give a declaration that the payment is made to money exchanger from which TDS was not required to be deducted under 194N, and it is not deducted by the bank. 194N was 1920 amendment, so very relevant. Same way 194M is also amendment made by financial year 1920, Finance number 2 Act 2019. It talks about TDS by individual HUF even if they are not covered by tax audit, or covered by tax audit if they are making the personal payment, the TDS is required to be made by them. This TDS is required to be made if the credit or payment during the financial year exceeds 50 lakh, and TDS is required to be made at the rate of 5% under 194M from the payments which are related to contract or payments which are related to commission brokerage or payment which are related to professional services, professional charges. The important is that had this been TDS under 194C for contract or 194J for professional charges or 194H for commission, then the amount must have been deposited up to 7th of next month, and for which appropriate 26Q and form number 16 would have been issued. Friends, for 194M, government has defined the section. Government has asked the payer to make the TDS, how this TDS should be deposited, how it should be communicated to department, in which form, until what date the payer is supposed to issue TDS certificate to the payee was not been mentioned. Government come out with the clarification and they say that such deducted amount under 194M shall be paid or credited to central government within 30 days from the end of the month in which deduction is to be made, accompanied by Challan cum statement in form number 26 QD. Friends, if you remember, when you are buying a property, the consideration for which exceeds 50 lakh, TDS is required to be made under 194 IA. This TDS can be deposited without TDS account number. Same way, there the TDS can be deposited in form number 26 QA, and it should be 26 QB, my mistake, and it should be, friends, with payment cum chalan. Same sort of mechanism is over here for 194M. It is payment chalan cum the statement is form number 26 QD. Same way, this needs to be deposited. Say for example, the TDS is made in the December 2019, then it should be deposited up to 31st January 2020. Till what date should be deposited? Month end, till it is up to the month end needs to be deposited again. If it is for November 19 payment, then TDS needs to be deposited up to December. It was December 19. TDS is to be deposited up to January 2020, 31st January 2020. Now listen. Act also has clarified that when you are depositing this money, then the remittance within 30 days from the end of the month in which TDS is made, and TDS certificate is to be issued to payee in form number 16D within 15 days from the due date of furnishing chalan cum statement in form number 26 QD as above, meaning thereby the statement needs to be furnished for TDS certificate up to 15th February 2020. So December is the month of TDS. Deposit via chalan cum statement in 26 QD up to 31st January, and TDS certificate issued under form number 16 AD. This needs to be issued, sorry, 16D, not AD, my mistake. This to be issued up to 15th of the next month after the due date of making the payment of chalan and furnishing the statement. Friends, this particular provisions are being provided not in the law but by way of notification prescribing rule number 32C, 36C, 31(3)C. And friends, here they are talking about the same thing, and that is, friends, 30 days from the end of the month in which the deduction is made, you need to make the deposit for the same. So these are the, I would say, important issues given related to TDS, mainly to 194N and 194M. Both the sections are very relevant from the viewpoint of examination as they are very new, friends. Friends, some clarifications in the topic assessment procedure, the very old, is linking of PAN with Aadhaar. The deadline was extended to X, Y, Z up to now extended to 31st March 2021. Obviously, this was extended after the date from which notification is not applicable to you, but being finalist, I would request you to remember the same, that now Aadhaar PAN linking is mandatory up to by 31st of March 2021. If it is not linked, then your PAN number will be cancelled. There are a number of litigation going on, but CBDT is very much clear that it has to be mandatory. Now, section 269 SU is a new section which provides for providing the specified mode of collecting the payment, electronic mode for collecting the payment. And this particular section is applicable to only businessmen having turnover exceeding 50 crore in the immediate preceding previous year are under an obligation to provide this facility to their customer to make the payment by way of specified electronic mode. These specified electronic mode are notified by CBDT wide notification, and it is under rule 119AA. It covers debit card powered by RuPay, unified payment interface, that is UPI, BHIM UPI, and unified payment interface quick response code, that is QR code UPI. Friends, only these three are permitted. When a section was inserted, we were of the opinion that it is compulsory to have credit card facility or debit card facility. No, it's not. These three facility are compulsory. If you are not giving this, if you are aware, friends, at the time you might be doing your articleship, that government has issued number of reminders to those whose turnover was exceeding 50 crore in the earlier year to start providing this facility. If you are not providing, then there would be a huge penalty which would be leviable to you. So this is compulsory, and only these three modes of payment are being mandated, are being notified. Plus, there are certain sections wherein government says, income tax department says that the payment has to be made by account pay check, account pay draft, ECS, or they have inserted the word other electronic modes. Now, which are those other electronic mode was not been mentioned. It is notified with the notification 8/2020 dated 29th of January 2020, but these other modes are covered in 35 AD, 40A3, 43(1). 35 AD is the section on investment based deduction. 40A3, 10,000 in excess if you are making the payment, it would be disallowed. 43(1), cost of asset. 44 AD, that is for that 6% or 8%. 43 CA, that is for that stamp duty valuation. 50 C, stamp duty. 56 210, stamp duty valuation. 80 JJAA, that is payment made to employee and additional deduction for the new employees. 13A, that is related to the political party. Friends, it also covers 269 SS, acceptance of deposit, repayment of deposit. 269T is repayment of deposit. 269 ST is about 2 lakh. You cannot take the money by cash. You can take it by this modes notified. Which modes are notified by the CBDT? Credit card. You can accept debit card, net banking, IMPS, UPI, RTGS, NEFT, and BHIM are acceptable mode. And friends, over here, if you are getting by account pay check, account pay draft, ECS, or this mode, then friends, remember, then the expenditure would not be disallowed, or it is considered to be not a violation of the particular provision. Friends, here these are related to your cash transactions and the transactions which are related to the other modes of the payment. Friends, the next one is from international taxation. Transfer pricing and other anti-avoidance measures. See friends, in transfer pricing, in old days we were under the impression that we need to make the primary adjustments. But after making the primary adjustments, the money needs to be remitted, equivalent to the primary adjustment needs to be remitted within the prescribed period. And if not remitted, the department is eligible to make secondary adjustments. Friends, here I'll clarify that the excess money need to be remitted on or before 90 days from the specified days. If not, then interest will be charged. The question arises, What is this specified date? 90 days of which you have to bring the money, repatriate the money. And if not, from which day the interest would be chargeable? Friends, where primary adjustments are made by the assessee suo motu in his return of income, then say for example that in books of accounts you have shown the sales to your associated outside India at 100, but in the RI return of income you have shown this 130. That means 30 rupee primary adjustment you have already made. In books of accounts you are supposed to get only 100 rupee from your sister concern outside India. And friends, this 30 rupee you have to bring in to India within 90 days from the due date of filing of return under 139(1). Meaning thereby, if your due date for the financial year 1920 at present when I am recording this is 2020 30th November, then you have to bring this up to say roughly 28th of February 2021. If you are able to bring in, well and good. You have to bring this extra 30 rupee also. Otherwise, the amount which you have not brought in would also be subjected to transfer pricing secondary adjustment for the interest. And if say you are bringing in on 15 February 2021, no secondary adjustment. But assume friends you are bringing in on say 23rd March 2021, that is after, I repeat friends, you have to bring in up to 30th November 2020, or rather your due date is 30th November 2020, you have to bring in within 3 months. If you are able to bring within this 3 months, well and good. By 15 February 2021, well and good, no secondary adjustment is required. But if you are bringing in on 23rd March 2021, the secondary adjustment of interest is required. This secondary adjustment of interest is required up to 23rd March 2021. But that interest is to be calculated from which day? Friends, they provide date from which the interest is chargeable on non-repatriated excess money or part thereof within 90 days. If you are not able to bring in within 90 days, then interest will be chargeable from the due date under 139(1), meaning thereby interest won't be chargeable from 28th February 2021 to 23rd March 2021, that is for 1 month. No. Interest will be chargeable from 30th November 2020 to 23rd March 2021, and it is for 4 months. If you are bringing in the money, well and good. If you are not able to bring in, you would be subjected to interest from day. If you are able to bring in within 90 days from the due date, well and good, no adjustment. But if you are not able to bring in, then interest will be calculated not after 90 days till the day you have brought in. Interest will be calculated from due date till the day you have brought in the money. That's what is very important. Friends, same way, if you have not made on your own, but if it is added by TPO, then the order, 90 days from the order of the assessing officer, you have to bring the money. If you have not brought in, then the interest will be from the date of order till the day you have brought in. And there are different circumstances which are given over here. So I am trying to clarify that interest is to be calculated not after 90 days till the day it is brought in. Interest will be calculated if not brought in within 90 days from the due date or date of order till the day you have brought in. Friends, under 10 CB, the rate at which interest shall be computed for failure to repatriate within 90 days is the 6 months LIBOR as on 30th September of the relevant previous year plus 3%. Like LIBOR is 4.2, then it would be 7.2% where the international transaction is in foreign currency. But if international transaction is in Indian rupee, then it would be calculated at the rate, or rather here exchange rate calculation value of rupee of the international transaction foreign currency shall be TT buying rate of such currency on the last day of the previous year in which international transaction is undertaken. Friends, here my assessee is given an option. If they don't want to repatriate this money, then my assessee is given an option that he can pay an additional tax and get rid of repatriation, get rid of this interest. That option is also given by Finance Act 2019 only. Friends, and in the TP itself, maintenance of books of accounts, section 92D, record and books of accounts, read with rule 10D and 10DA. There is 10DA notification number 3 2020 dated 6 January 2020. It talks about the, friends, maintenance of books and record by an entity which belongs to an international group. The constituent entity has to keep and maintain such prescribed information and document irrespective of fact whether or not any international transaction is undertaken by this constituent entity or not. General rule is that if you are entering into international transaction, you would maintain the record for international transfer pricing as per section 92D, rule 10D. But if there is an entity in India belonging to international group, then such entity, even if it has not entered into any international transaction during the year, has to keep and maintain certain books of account, certain records. Friends, this 10DA goes this way. Specification of threshold limit for the constituent entity of an international group to keep and maintain information and document. Every person being constituent entity in India of the international group, if the consolidated group revenue of the international group of which such person is a constituent entity as reflected in the consolidated financial statement for the accounting year if exceeds 5 crore, maintain, and the aggregate value of international transaction during the accounting year is more than 50 crore, or in respect of purchase, sale, lease, use, tangible, etc., it exceeds 10 crore, has to keep and maintain the documents and record of the international group. Friends, here also the rate of exchange will be TTBR. Same way, friends, certain information and documents of the international group required to be kept and maintained are list of all entity, chart depicting the legal status of constituent entity, description of the business of international group during the accounting year including nature of business and other stories, description of the overall strategy of international group, list of all entity, the list of all the important tangible and intangible property of the particular group, and many other details which are required to be kept and maintained. See, the purpose behind this is that even if India has not entered into the international transaction, government would like to know the list of the constituent entity, because transfer pricing is a subject wherein we have to check out the shifting of profit from one country to another country, and if an international group has an entity in India, then India is also an interested party to have all this document. Due date for furnishing of report over here will be 139(1) due date, that is due date of filing of return. And friends, if there are more than one constituent entity, then international group has to designate one entity as a designated entity, and that has to be conveyed at least 30 days before the due date in form 3CEAA. Friends, so it has to be nominated by international group only, that if there are X, Y and Z 3 entity, Y will furnish this. And friends, remember, this needs to be furnished within the prescribed period, otherwise there is going to be a penal consequences. Remember that you cannot be asked to maintain the books for more than 8 years over here. Last, to close the theoretical part of the RTP for today's session, kindly remember, this was asked by many students when we were doing the panel discussion, when we were having the certain faculty discussions. Extension of dates and due dates and relaxation as per press release dated 24th March 20. Notification number 35 2020 dated 24th June 20. On account of COVID pandemic are not applicable for November 20 examination, like ATC, ATD, ATG. Investment can be made up to 31st of July 2020 for the financial year 1920 is not applicable for November 20 examination. Due date of filing of return for assessment year 1920 is extended to 30th September 20, not applicable. Same way, residential status condition due to lockdown, that if he is in India and he was to fly, couldn't fly, he is becoming resident, but he would be considered as non-resident if his quarantine vagera conditions would also not be applicable. So you are lucky, you don't have to bother about the same. Understand the normal provisions which we have studied in residential status or the return filing. Friends, direct tax Vivad se Vishwas scheme, if applicable, up to 30th June and thereafter extended up to 31st December 2020, this VSVS, otherwise it would be a big task for us to remember this VSVS, understand this VSVS, Vivad se Vishwas, that is also not applicable for my friends of November 2020. Friends, our RTP for final C is divided into two parts, theory, and theory will cover this judicial notification, circular amendments or other clarification, ordinance, and the practical. My attempt was today to cover up the theoretical part, which we have covered up. Friends, in the coming part of my lecture, friends, this has been theoretical portion, as I have said. The practical portion of the RTP I will be covering up. In practical, friends, our institute has given us around 20 questions, of which 12 is objective type and another 8 are descriptive type. We will try and cover up all the questions in the next lecture. Till then, keep watching Naukar Digital Institute, and I am committed to provide this practical including MCQ and descriptive, objective and descriptive within next 24 to 36 hours. Till then, friends, thank you very much. Stay home, stay safe. Thanks a lot.
If you like this video, share it with your friends. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch more such videos and learn from our expert faculty members. Press the bell icon to get regular notifications whenever we upload a new video. Download NDI mobile app to get complete CA course online. We value your support. Thank you for watching.